Hey, how did you get here?
Elise! Giselle! Jump!
Hello everyone, it is so good to see you. Tales of Xillia released overseas on the PS3 in August of 2013, the second on the console following Tales of Grace's F. And much like back then, Bandai Namco has lined up these two titles one after another, now both remastered and on modern platforms. But how well does this hold up over a decade later? Was this title in need of a re-release, or should we be knocking on their door asking for a new Mothership game at this point? Today we're going to look for these answers and more. Let's take a look at Tales of Xillia Remastered. Tales of Xillia features dual protagonists and allows you to choose whose perspective you want to follow, a first in the series. There is Mila Maxwell, a swordswoman who embodies the four spirits of the world, known as a Lord of Spirits. Having grown up as a deity with the Force support, she is a bit clueless about humanity and the world outside of her home. Then there is Jude Mathis, a medical student who gets wrapped up in Mila's conflict when they have a sudden meeting in the glowing city of Fenmont. He's a martial artist and is, as the cast will call out multiple times, a do-gooder. You can select to follow either, and while the story is mostly the same for about 90% of the journey, I feel I need to make a strong recommendation to new players. Even though the game highlights both characters evenly, I highly suggest playing Jude's story first. Listen, I know a lot of people will see Pretty Girl and choose her, but let me explain. The two part ways and reconvene several times in the story, but you get a lot more world building and context for various scenes with Jude in particular. When you play as Mila, there are a lot of scenes that occur where you're almost expected to know the context from Jude's story. There's sudden cuts and jumps in the narrative that feels uneven unless you already know the events prior. While you still get the broad strokes of the story well enough, Mila's perspective is more like a bonus route, showing you the second side of certain scenes, whether they're character building, fluff, or major plot points. It'll actually spoil some parts of Jude's tale, and you'll miss out on some of the most pivotal moments, if not through his eyes. The Tale series is built for multiple playthroughs, so this was their way to give some distinct variety in the second run. Mila is also more difficult to use in battle, using both physical and magical attacks together, while Jude is closer to a traditional melee protagonist. Even so, you can freely use either for the vast majority of the game. As this is the Tale series' first experimentation with dual protagonists, the overall format comes off as a bit unnecessary in some ways. It definitely feels as though this game was built with Jude in mind as the sole protagonist, and then added more scenes later on to flesh out Mila's perspective. Honestly, I wish they could have stitched the different scenes unique to them into one route. Not everybody is going to have time to do a New Game Plus. But as you play, you realize how some of the longer stretches of the narrative make it a bit too difficult to manage this in any elegant way, so this was their compromise. In the end, I can't force you to choose one over the other, it is just a recommendation. Regardless, I do appreciate that this is essentially the very first Tales game to feature a female lead. Now, two perspectives aside, if you have any familiarity with the Tales of series, you probably already have an idea of what you're getting yourself into. We have all the hallmarks of many JRPGs front and center. A colorful cast of characters that band together and travel a fantastical world. However, it's the battle system that will always immediately set this apart from others in this genre. Games in recent years might be shifting that as there are more with real-time battles, but this formula still holds up in my opinion. Rather than being traditionally turn-based, all enemies and allies will move and act at the same time. You have your basic combo attacks, guarding, dodging, and special moves called arts. You start off with very few, but as you progress, your arsenal of arts will grow and can be freely assigned to directional inputs. Carried over from Grace's, in a sense, is the Assault Counter, or AC, which will allow you to keep comboing moves until the counter runs out. You'll have to wait, apply skills, or fulfill certain requirements in battle to replenish this meter. It all comes down to the balance of chaining these together with basic attacks, advanced arts, and teamwork with allies to rack up a big combo. New to this system is the ability to link with teammates. Press the D-pad in the direction of the partner you want to link with and you'll function as a pair. Your partner will flank an enemy you've targeted from behind, giving them more opportunities to land critical hits. As the link gauge on the lower left fills up, you'll be able to use linked arts, bigger and flashier attacks that can hit a wider area of enemies. Each character also has unique supports when linked. For example, when you're knocked down, Jude will apply a small heal and help you back up. He might even resurrect you if your character falls. Alvin, on the other hand, is useful for breaking the guard of sturdier enemies. When targeted, each enemy will reveal who is the best partner to link with to give you the biggest advantage. It is easily the biggest addition and evolution to the linear motion battle system that Tales is known for. And because this is such a big focus, they've also added the option to swap in characters during a battle. Press the right stick in and you can switch a partner on the fly. I really do love it when a game can make use of your entire party in one battle, instead of just having some of them sit on the bench. It feels more contextually sound and makes us feel like we're part of a real team. If you played Tales of Graces F Remastered, you might have noticed that these mechanics, at their core, are not the same. This leans back to a more traditional system that we saw in games like Tales of Vesperia, but continues to build off of and evolve from that. This is overall a departure from what Graces had established, which may be disappointing or even considered a step back to some. I will say, in the long run, I do prefer that battle system to Xillia, but in almost all other regards, I think that's the only aspect of Graces I favor over this game. Also, I don't know if it's just me, but the control stick feels very sensitive during battle. I was jumping and flying out in directions I wasn't intending to. It wasn't a huge factor, but I can see how this can hinder new players if it's an issue that can be addressed. Much like Graces Remastered, we are allowed to have access to the Great Shop at the very beginning of the game. I mentioned this in that game's review as well, but I feel this is absolutely the biggest change here. The Great Shop is normally a post-game feature. In Xillia, you earn titles throughout the course of this game from mostly everything that you do, leveling up, opening chests, doing side quests, what have you. They're like an in-game achievement system now, and earning them earns you grade points. You're meant to spend that grade you earn to carry over items, currency, and features from your previous playthrough, as well as accessing new features like expanded inventories or experience boosts. Titles are somewhat more moot now because you can buy pretty much everything at the shop from the start. This makes your first playthrough function as a New Game Plus. The best part is that everything about this is customizable. If this is your first time playing, maybe you don't want to touch this at all and want to have the core first playthrough experience. Or you might be like me and will opt to turn most options on because I played through this game multiple times in the past. You can access many of the features of the Great Shop during your game, so if something feels off, you are free to continue tweaking it to make your time with this world personally tailored to you. It feels like the classic structure of Tales was just barely hanging on in some regards here. It has a pseudo-world map. Every place is connected by large fields with their own artificial walls. Yes, sometimes they do just feel like exaggerated hallways, but some places do have puzzle solving, if not simplistic ones. For the most part, you can explore freely between story segments, usually for gaining experience, collecting items, or doing side quests, which you can now easily track too. Every corner of this game is absolutely littered with materials and chests. Throughout it all, you will find so much stuff to pick up. These materials can be traded to shops to advance their levels, expanding their stock or offering discounts. You are required to be fairly mindful and proactive in many regards. Make sure to keep trading these items for points towards the shops, because that's how you unlock better weapons and armor. Just visiting new towns is not enough. Actively expand shops, update equipment, and set new arts and skills when you earn them. Oh yeah, the character skills. Customization goes pretty deep here. One of the most interesting mechanics of this game is the way that you learn skills through the Lilium Orb. This is not a simple skill tree, this is a skill web. When you level up, you will earn GP, which you can spend on the nodes of your orb. These can unlock stat boosts, skills, or new arts. When you learn enough skills that surround a segment, you'll also learn the skill that is nestled inside. These tend to be more powerful and tantalizing than the normal nodes. The best part is that you have complete agency over how you want to build your characters. There might be a new art or skill you want to save all your GP for in particular. Or you might not really be that invested and just tell the game to auto-level based on their character's natural parameters. It's up to you. I just know that anytime I see something that resembles the sphere grid, it makes me happy inside. You will spend a lot of time pondering the orbs. For me, this scratches that same itch. It is such a great way to gradually watch your characters grow. Oh! Sometimes I feel like the character customization goes a little too far. Everyone can be set with different outfits, accessories that you find, hairstyles. These combinations can all be registered as custom sets. You can easily take all the tension out of a cutscene by making a full team of Santa's helpers. Guys, I can make everyone have the exact same slick-backed hairstyle and headband as myself. I feel so heard, seen, and included. The team really does just want you to have fun with it, whether you're putting on silly glasses, dressing as classic characters, or just wanting to take your crew as seriously as possible. And I strongly believe that it's a cast that you'll begin to care about. As with other Tales games, your playable crew are a fun, quirky bunch that get wrapped up in each other's problems. Like most families. Alvin is a very aloof, free-spirited mercenary who's just doing what he wants to make that money. Elise is very timid and shy, but a powerful magic user. I'm usually not a fan of the little kid characters, but she's very sweet. She carries around, this. Tipo. The mascot character makes up the majority of the volume between these two. Gonna be interesting to see how people react to this spud. Leia is like your classic childhood friend to Jude, very high energy who contrasts how stoic Mila can be in comparison. And Rowan is just a gentleman who happens to have to babysit everyone here. Kudos to Tales for being one of those rare series that will put an actual elder on the team. I know there's other games that do this too, but only Dragon Quest immediately comes to mind. There's no playing the trope of being in your 30s means you're a grandpa. When Rowan says his back is hurting, there's a chance that he's not being sarcastic. He's honestly grown to be one of my favorites. Does that mean I'm getting old too? Compared to parties I see in other games, this group comes together relatively quickly without the story feeling like it was rushing to do so. Tales of Xillia's first hour may start with some awkward pacing, but once you arrive at your second location, the story starts to set its focus. From early on, Jude is on the run after he and Mila cause some trespassing and destruction. They catch on to some secrets that they probably would have been better off not knowing, and get taken for a ride. Jude struggles to deal with the realities of the world, coming to understand that he can't help every single person. It's a difficult lesson for a medical student, someone meant to heal everyone, to come to terms with. I think it's an interesting, realistic examination of the heart of gold protagonist who wants to save everybody in need. He is constantly forced to combat his ideals, and comes to realize that through his own friends in the party. Mila pursues her own mission involving the 4 great spirits, and the incident that takes them away from her. Yes, she literally suffers the powers get taken from you at the beginning of the game plot. Trust me, it's kinda necessary. In her quest to reunite them, she wants to eliminate the Lance of Kresnik, the largest of many devices that bring harm to spirits and the natural balance of the world. She's very driven, almost shockingly so, even willing to accept losses for the sake of her mission. But she also begins to learn about empathy and what it's like to lean on another's shoulder. In all, it is a more mature story than some of the Tales games that came before it. Everywhere, there is just that feeling of more happening in the moment to moment, even just a few hours in. Something that I especially appreciate about the Tales series is how, starting with this era, it doesn't suffer from as many scenes consisting of a group of people just standing in a circle and talking. There's a good amount of cleverly placed character movement and angles that makes scenes feel a lot more lively and natural. They were getting really comfortable with motion capture here. That's the thing though, it can come across as a bit awkward at times with clothes or hair clipping through. Mila's hair, especially when lying down, is probably the biggest culprit, and some of these visuals might actually be suffering a bit from the remastered treatment. In general, the game doesn't look too different from the PS3 original, much like Tales of Grace's F, but there are certainly places where you can tell that this was a game from over 10 years ago. The foliage might look flat, and some parts of the models, like Alvin's face and jawline for example, just look kinda weird when close up in cutscenes. Sorry, Alvin. Mila's hair, again, is another troublesome factor. It is so beautifully messy that you can see the pixelization of individual strands when viewing those dramatic close-ups. But the art style doesn't suffer as much as I thought it would, at least in some cases. It's presented more like a pastel painting. Many of the scenic shots are meant to be viewed from a distance, or in this context, not in the crisp resolution that we have now. The game doesn't rely on deep saturation or cel shading. I think that would harm the overall tone of this game. While I would love to see Tales take on the art style of a game like Vesperia again, these aesthetics work well for the story and the messages that they want to convey. However, something this comparison here made me realize is how some of the remade assets look worse in the remaster, notably the reflections in the water. You might have caught this already, but on the PS3, the reflections are very soft and muted. It gives more attention to Jude by blurring the background. But on the PS5, the water is remarkably crisp and not in a good way. It's very bright and sharp, kind of like a rippling mirror. Sure, water can realistically reflect like this, but it doesn't have the same visual communication of the original on the PS3. It's pretty distracting in comparison. And for some reason, I noticed Jude also has his models somewhat redone. These are the exact same frames, you can tell by the position of his face and his hands, but his shoulders and pretty much all of his clothing have been remodeled along with being up-resed. And I feel not all of it looks better. Every character has a bit of remodeling done, like on Mila's arm. I wish they could put more effort into it beyond simply sharpening and increasing the contrast, because some of these textures look unfinished when viewed up close in scenes. Several of these cases won't be as prominent throughout the game, but I'd prefer if we could ease up on the use of AI upscaling in textures and animated cutscenes. It's not as egregious as Tales of Symphonia Remastered, but I feel like I kicked that game and its low bar down enough as it is. What I will say is that unfortunately, the Nintendo Switch version performs less optimally than the PS3 version. On the PS3, battles were at 60 frames per second, and everywhere else it was 30. The Switch, while it does run at 1080p docked, is capped at 30 FPS throughout. I'm currently playing the PS5 version, which does run much more smoothly at a constant 60. Fast-paced combat benefits more from 60 frames per second, so this compromise is rather baffling. It is notoriously difficult to get any games off of the PS3, so this may play a factor, but it's still disappointing to see. The skits are as humorous and entertaining as ever. These stand as the best tools for character building I've seen in any RPG, even though they're just little squares most of the time. The voice direction feels especially strong during these. But if I'm not mistaken, there's an issue with skits not showing up as quickly as they should. Skits that I know should occur took over a minute to show up at times. That means these can easily be missed if you're moving from area to area too quickly. It's unfortunate that there's a caveat to a lot of aspects of this remaster. I think the biggest criticism of this game that I can give is that it didn't also include Tales of Xillia 2, a game that is no longer available on the PS3 online store. It's a weird decision considering that the PS3 also gave us Tales of Symphonia Chronicles, which included the first game and also an enhanced port of the Wii title, Dawn of the New World. Both of those games have drastically different art styles, but the Xillia duology has so much of the same assets shared between the two. It is confirmed that Xillia 2 is being worked on, along with 2 more titles for the remastered project, so at the very least we know that it's coming. This title is $40 US, which, given this market today, is not a bad price for a remastered game of this size. It also comes with a lot of costumes and DLC that was originally in the PlayStation Store, just unfortunately no licensed content. When it comes down to it, judging based on the platform you play on, Tales of Xillia is a somewhat troubled remaster. Those who want to jump into the Tales series and perhaps pass on graces earlier can jump in here for a bit of a mix of that classic and modern feel. While there are many references to other games, as these titles tend to do, this is not strictly related to any other in the series. The main connection would be the Four Spirits and Maxwell, the ruler of the Four. It is a recurring theme that has been seen since Tales of Fantasia on the Super Famicom. Fans can keep their eyes peeled and read even more references between the lines. There's a lot of interesting hidden attention to detail when you just don't expect it. When you're wandering around Mila's home as Jude or anyone else, the villagers will act as usual. But if you are Mila herself on screen, everyone who worships Maxwell will bow to her as you pass by. It's little things like this that make the world feel much more endearing. Players will absolutely find some of the exaggerated movements or occasional cheesy moments as something to laugh at. I forgot how silly the running animation looks like when you have the wing boots item. I accidentally left it on for a lot of the recording. Oops! The game has its fair share of awkward or stilted animations at times, but you know what? I find that to be part of the PS3 charm. With everything I've discussed in mind, I give Tales of Xillia Remastered an 8 out of 10. While not revolutionary, it is a very well-paced game that doesn't linger too long on any of its subplots. The enhancements and overall quality of life is respectful to both newcomers and veterans of the series. If you played Tales of Graces F Remastered, you have a grasp of what you're in for here, and perhaps except for the battle system itself, you're in for a title that improves upon the last in nearly every aspect. And you can be certain that I'll be back soon to probably repeat some of this when the sequel to this game, one of my favorite entries, gets announced at some point. Thank you so much for checking out this review. If you're still watching, thank you in particular. I'm happy whenever I get to talk about Tales, and that people will hear me talk about it for this long. And it's wild to think that we have even more to come, because we're probably not even halfway through the Tales Remastered project. Do you think you'll pick up Xillia? Are you going to wait and see when the sequel is announced and perhaps get them both then? Do you pronounce Xillia differently than I do? I always forget how. Let me know down below. I always love hearing from Tales fans. I feel we're a quiet but plentiful bunch out there. But that's enough for me. It's time to speedrun a Jude playthrough. Take care everyone, till we meet again.